You said it's about 30-second delay? Okay. So I'm Jason Barlow, and I'm going to go ahead and call to order the March 15th Caroline County Broadband Advisory Committee meeting. We have the agenda up on the screen. Is there anything that we need to make any changes to this agenda, amendments to the agenda that anybody has seen?
I'll scroll through the agenda slowly so everybody gets a chance to look it over.
I don't have any changes. Does anybody else have any changes?
Nope.
None for me.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll go ahead and continue on at this point. Do we have any consent agenda? Anything? We have the approval of the minutes from the February 15th meeting. I don't know, David, do you have those available to pull up on the screen, or how do we want to handle that?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
I apologize, I didn't ask you earlier on that one.
I've got the strategic plan ready to go, but let me see if I can pick those up.
I can pull out my trusty notebook.
All right. Yes, I do have those. Now I have to figure out how to switch the share here. Okay, that should be the minutes. Can everybody see those?
Yes, I've got it. Do we just want to give a high? Do we just want to scroll through them, or do we need to read them out? Or
I don't believe we do at this point. The people that would have to move to approve them have already received a copy of them and hopefully had a chance just to read through them.
okay.
So I guess a motion just to accept.
Maybe we can, David, maybe we can post these minutes on the county webpage, create a broadband committee link, and just post the minutes so they're out there like the other county minutes.
Yeah, I will check with Cassie Ruby, and we'll make that happen, because I know we have had at least one request for the minutes since the last meeting. And so we'll, of course, if any citizens need a copy, then too, we can also email them directly to them as well. So.
Right. The fact that it's broadcast is better than minutes, but sometimes folks want to look at the minutes instead of the actual broadcast.
Okay. So, David, do you mind looking in or working with Cassie on that?
I can.
You're good with that?
I can do that. And
thank you, sir.
Just to help with the minutes, the preparation of the minutes of this meeting, I will be recording this meeting as well. So we're recording this meeting now. So we have both the live stream and the recorded stream on YouTube, as well as a recorded copy of this meeting. So, and that is now started. So.
Perfect. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I need a second for that one?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Seeley, are you seconding it?
Sure.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the minutes being approved from the February 15th Broadband Committee meeting, say aye.
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 All right. All opposed? Same sign? All right, they've been approved. All right, so we'll move on to old business at this point. Is that a good place to jump into? I hate to see you have to keep jumping back and forth, David. I apologize for that.
That's okay. We'll it should be displayed now.
Okay. Yep, we've got it. So if we go to number 2, it's just the continued discussion of the public approval of the strategic plan that we have for the broadband committee. I believe David's going to pull that up. He had that up just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
You're good.
For some reason, I'm not seeing it.
Now, Jason, the strategic plan that David's going to bring up is the strategic plan that we actually submitted with our VATI grant too. That's the one I worked on and gave to the committee and went in through the VATI grant, right?
As far as I know, yes. It looks like it was actually done on 7/21/2020.
Right.
Is when it was, we originally brought the strategic plan together.
Mr. Thomas, we just thought that since there's been a couple of slight changes, possible offering of the Starlink service, we just wanted to go through this, review it, make sure that that doesn't change anything, make sure that we're still up to date on our strategic plan, and if so, probably formally approve it tonight since we're now, in a public meeting setting. It might not be a bad idea just to vote on this again.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's a good point. If I could say one other thing, that we expect the strategic plan to actually be a living document and change based on, if nothing else, technology. So Starlink's a new technology that wasn't available at the time I wrote this, and now is available, so we can add it in there.
So if you'd like, I can go ahead and just go through this and we can comment as we go along. So if anybody has any comments, just interrupt me. But again, I can go ahead and read through it just to make sure. At the September 21st meeting in 2020, the Caroline County Broadband Committee adopted its strategic plan. The Caroline County Board of Supervisors and the citizens of Caroline County, Virginia, believe that access to high-speed internet provides a valuable service to each and every one of us. To that end, we have developed this strategic plan to accomplish the goal of providing every citizen that access and close the digital divide that exists in rural America. We also believe that access to high-speed internet will provide our citizens access to e-commerce, telework, telemedicine, GPS farming, and distance learning, making Caroline a viable and effective 21st century place to live. I do see one change that we should make, and that would be change the word "and" to "and" in that last sentence. A viable and effective, if that's okay.
Fine.
Have no problem with corrections to my grammar at all.
The county has previously partnered with a now defunct broadband firm, which initially provided wireless internet connections at several telecommuting sites, as well as at various public safety locations. The county has also expedited tower approval process for cellular providers to allow for faster implementation of cellular hotspots. The county, along with the Caroline County Public Schools, has taken advantage of the federal government's E-rate program to provide access to all public schools and libraries. Our short-term goals: in response to the need for distance learning Both the county and the schools have provided wireless access points at every school and library so that citizens and students have the ability to travel to a location close to their home and download data when needed. While we believe this is not the most effective use for individuals, it does provide a short-term need of access.
David, I would put a period after the word needed.
All right, where is?
The second line or second to the last line in short-term goals.
How about that?
Yep, perfect.
All right. Our midterm goals. Currently, Caroline County is served by 2 cable service providers, one that covers the town of Bowling Green and the town of Port Royal. Bowling Green is located in the central part of the county and Port Royal in the eastern part of the county, separated from most of the county by a 77,000 acre base hill. The other covers the western part of the county and the densely populated Ladysmith area. It is the county's desire to partner with the 2 current cable providers to expand their footprints to allow more citizens access to their cable operations. Currently, the county is applying for a BADI grant with Atlantic Broadband to expand service in rural and Bowling Green areas of Caroline County. Additionally, the county has contacted.
That should probably say contacted.
Yep.
Comcast.
To expand their service areas to include
Additional areas.
additional areas. So our long-term goal is to provide fiber optic cable access where the cost and the number of connections are economically feasible.
Yeah.
Make it.
Did I mention that I was the math guy and not the English guy?
Well,
Hey, I'm right
You
there
always
with you.
claim to not be the math guy, Floyd.
Mhm.
You
You
always
always what,
claim
Jeff?
to not be the math guy.
No, I claim to be the math guy, not the English guy.
Yeah, but you always say fuzzy math.
and
Well,
we've
that's just to make it easy.
And we've read this over many times, so I think it's good for us to go through and make sure we have it like we need it.
Yeah.
Use fixed wireless or TV white space technology to provide access to those who may be in more rural locations.
Now, this is where you can add
Right.
Starlink,
Uh,
or do you want to add it later?
I'm wondering if we add Starlink as either a short-term goal or a midterm goal, because I don't know whether Starlink is going to be whether we want Starlink to be a permanent solution or not.
We could
Because-
even generalize it to say, high speed satellite companies to make it more general.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, Charlie, because we don't necessarily want to say any particular company. It's okay to say technology, and in the case where we've got existing companies, but we're not saying what company does fixed wireless or what company does TV white space.
Right.
If we ever use those. So it's probably good just to say satellite technology.
So I guess Jason's question is, do we want to consider these as the final solution, or would we want to maybe use these and give more weight to a cable / fiber cable hybrid solution as the permanent, the preferred permanent solution wherever possible?
I think that until these technologies prove themselves to be, functional as a long-term goal, that they shouldn't be considered that way.
And right now, Starlink is still in the beta. It's rolling out, and there's a lot of evidence and a lot of good data coming out of it, but I don't know the number of current active users on it, and I don't know how it's going to react as you get more and more on there across the globe. So I don't know whether I want to put them in there as a long-term goal or whether I just say like a midterm goal is, satellite internet, because ultimately, and I don't know, I'm just stating this or, giving my opinion. Long-term goal would be some sort of fiber or optical cable or coax cable as a permanent solution, because then that kind of protects us against the kind of future-proofs Caroline County.
I guess my question would be, and again, as the staff liaison to this committee, I participate in any votes, but my question would be, at the current advertised cost of Starlink, what could residents get for that same cost if they had cable or fiber offered to them? Could they
Much faster
and much better solution?
Faster, but not much less expensive, though.
Yeah, and that's what I don't know, Mr. Seeley, and maybe in the future, if we have ABB come in and talk to us, to this committee, maybe we can get them to give us some insight as to how that would compare.
Mr. Seeley, when you said not less expensive, do you mean to the customer or for installation cost and building out the infrastructure?
Well, let me just say, if you lived somewhere where there was fiber going by your house and you said, oh, I'm going to get that, the cost per month is really, and we'll have to see what the Starlink numbers look like, but I'll tell you that my cost for internet is right at like $93 a month when you add everything together that goes with it.
Right.
So that's a case, there's not a lot of difference on cost there. So maybe the satellite is just as cost effective.
I think well, David, for the purpose of this discussion, I think we all agree that fiber would actually be the long-term goal, because as you said, it future-proofs us. And maybe we should just take that sentence out, used fixed wireless, TV white space, or satellite technology, and move that up to a midterm goal at this point, because that may be something we do now, but may not be able to replace later on in the long term. But the long-term goal would be fiber to everybody's house. Whether we can do that's another story, but that is the long-term goal. So let's just take that whole sentence out and move it up to midterm.
Could we add some sort of word to satellite to distinguish it from the old school high latency satellite?
Yeah, you can call it low Earth orbit.
Low Earth satellite?
Yeah, low Earth orbit satellites. And versus geosynchronous. Yeah, because geosynchronous is not an option.
All right, so we want to.
Well, it really is. It really is. There's people using it. They hate it, but they're using it.
I used to be one of those people.
All right, so we want to move to
midterm. Yeah.
Midterm goals.
I think it would be a good interim step. I mean, short term.
Yeah.
It's
not short term because we can't do it right away.
Exactly. No, that's the reason I'm saying it's not short term. So the only other place would be mid.
If you guys want to read over that paragraph as I just edited, it might not be a bad idea. I added use fixed wireless, TV white space, or low Earth orbit satellite technology to provide access to those who may be in more rural locations.
Okay.
That sound good to everybody?
Sounds good. Thank you.
So now we're down to the county has created a broadband committee to act as an advisory committee to the county board of supervisors. The goal of this committee is to formulate a comprehensive plan that will assist the board in making decisions that will make broadband more available to the citizens of Caroline County, and ultimately to make all citizens a broadband provider to which they can subscribe. The committee will work to identify areas that the existing providers can expand service. It is the recommendation, I guess, the recommendation of this committee. Would that
Yes.
better of this committee that where a densely, we'll put a comma in here. I need my daughter-in-law. She's a 11th grade English teacher. She could probably that where a density of 15 occupied dwellings or businesses per linear mile exists, and where no connections to existing cable TV internet provider exists, that this is the preferred form of internet that currently exists. The committee will explore and recommend areas to expand. In areas of less than 15 occupied dwellings or businesses per linear mile, the committee will explore existing as well as emerging technology to find the best possible solution to deliver the availability of an internet provider. As this technology is constantly and rapidly changing, the committee will constantly monitor this policy for need to change and update it as new opportunities emerge. That is the document.
David, if you don't mind going up to the long term real quick. Do we want to say, it says provide fiber optic cable access? Should we change that to provide fixed cable access? Because there are other companies like coax cable. If we use I don't know whether we get into the logistics of fiber optic cable. If we ran coax cable to everybody's house, is that going to be a big deal? But I was just wondering if we changed over to provide a fixed cable access, or and then that covers basically anything current or coming out.
I think that makes sense.
Because fixed cable, I mean, that is like the ultimate, if we could get fixed cable access to everybody's, premise, then that is the ultimate goal. That'd be wonderful.
Now, Mr. Seeley and Mr. Thomas, since we're at this point in reviewing the document, this committee has not received any guidance as far as the county, whether we consider cost when we make a recommendation or not. And the committee has been pretty open and honest about the fact that from day one that we worked hard to form the committee based on people's technical experience. And so we make, I guess, the recommendations based on whether technologically they would make sense or not. Is that where we want to stay?
That's my understanding. Much like other committees, Planning Commission, Social Services Board, they make, well, that might be a little bit different, but the Planning Committee is pretty much a technical arm of the county, and they make recommendations based on the technical aspects. And then the Board of Supervisors for the entire county factors in all the other aspects of a given project and makes a final decision. So our goal is probably our long-term goal, as Jason just said, is to provide fixed cable to everyone. Whether financially that's feasible is something that the entire board and the county would decide. So I think your recommendation should be what's the best thing. That's my opinion. Jeff?
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot like the Planning Commission, a recommendation so that we have everybody on the board at least at the same level of understanding.
Mike Vosberg just joined the meeting. Mike, how are you doing this evening?
Hang on. I'm having trouble.
Uh-oh. We're glad. We're good. It's good to see you. All right, so are there any other changes, additions, subtractions that we need? I guess we could put a comma here and put revised 03-15-2021.
That works.
If there's any other changes that should be made, and again, we'll continue to review this as the situation changes. Mike, I think you got in just to bring you up to speed just a little bit. Since the strategic plan is a living, breathing document, as Mr. Thomas said. So, and even in the document itself, it says that we will review it and update it as needed. The one big change that's taken place since this document was created last July is at least the promised offering sometime in the future of low orbit satellites. So we figured we might want to update that. The majority of our discussion was based on where that recommendation should land, whether it should be a midterm goal to try to address the immediate need, or it should be a long-term goal. The discussion that we had ended up, as Mr. Beal had referred to in the past, the ultimate place to be is fiber to the home, or a fixed cable connection to the homes is where we want to be. So for that reason, we moved some data around just a little bit. We moved the use of fixed wireless or TV white space or low orbit, Earth orbit satellite technology to a midterm goal.
Okay.
Our long-term goal is still to provide fixed cable access where the cost and the number of connections make it economically feasible.
Understood.
So that's
Good.
not changing. We just don't, we alluded to the fact that Starlink is one of the providers that's coming up, and they are still in beta, and numbers are looking good, but it's still kind of an unproven technology at this point to us. The other thing that I would bring up in this part of the discussion is the fact that they did receive RDOF funding, but yet we've received no guidance whatsoever from that company as to whether that RDOF funding is going to affect the end user cost for either the equipment or the monthly fee. There's been no press release from that. So at this point, we don't know how, if any, or what, if any, effect the RDOF funding is going to have on the cost of that satellite service. But it is, we mentioned at the last meeting, those units are at least available to pre-order. So citizens that don't have anything, that need something, have the opportunity to pre-order that on their website with a down payment of 1 month's service, and then they would be billed for the equipment once that ships. And we're being told, according to their site, that that'll be either late this summer or later this year, late summer, early fall, and sometime in that time frame, they will start shipping. Based on the supply chain problems that we're seeing in all technology right now, I would have to believe that once they go into mass orders, we will see probably some supply chain problems. So if somebody's in need of this and would like to get on early, may not be a bad idea to go ahead and do that pre-order. Because once it hits broad service, the order number will go up. The supply chain will most likely have trouble meeting that, at least initially, and you could see a longer delay.
All right, before we go too much further into Starlink, because I got a couple other things I wanted to talk about that, do we want to adopt this and vote on, do I have any motions to to adopt this, the revision and the changes that we made?
You should probably ask for a motion to adopt the changes.
Okay.
I president of MPS.
What was that? Was that a motion?
And whoever just spoke before Jason Barlow, your audio dropped out through part of what you were saying.
Oh, that might have been me. I think I said you should probably ask for a motion to adopt the changes.
Okay.
And this is Floyd. I wouldn't make that motion. I think one of the actual committee members should make that motion.
Right.
I make a
Can I
motion that we approve the changes to the strategic plan.
And
So
That was Jason Jacobus.
Jacobus. Yes. Do I have a second?
second,
And that was seconded by
Charlie?
Charlie Bowman.
Yes, sir. Is there any discussion, any more discussion on this before we call for a vote? All right, I'll take silence as the golden rule, and if everybody in favor of adopting this, our revisions and our changes to the Caroline County Broadband Committee Strategic Plan, please say aye.
aye.
I,
All opposed, same sign. All right, it is adopted. Our changes are adopted. I think those were, I think that was a good thing to do, and I appreciate you, taking the time to do that, David. I think that's a very good thing that we've done.
I think it's a good idea for us to revisit that from time to time because the technology has definitely changed and we don't want a strategic plan that's out of date.
Oh yeah.
And it's important for us to remind the citizens, whether they're watching YouTube Live or watch the stream later, that it is the goal of this committee and the goal of the Board of Supervisors to have everybody the opportunity to connect. And that's what we're working to try to do.
Right. All right, so let's move to number 3, which is update on Starlink. And I'm gonna, David, I'm not gonna ask you to pull this up, but anybody that's interested, there's a neat website that you can go to for Starlink that is satellite map, all one word, .space. If you go to that website and there's a little gear at the top of that website, you can actually turn on rings, which shows you the coverage of that satellite. And there's currently 2 payloads of 60 satellites going right above Virginia as we speak, right over Caroline County. They
What's
have not
the site again?
satellite map, SATELL.
Satellite map.
MAP. Yep, that one right there. I sent it to Jason Jacobus earlier, but it's actually
It's a link in chat.
cool. Yeah.
Satellite map.
.space.
It's in the chat.
Okay.
But there's actually one of the new deployments of 60 satellite trains going above Caroline County right now. They have not been split apart. And then there's another one just north of that of another 60 satellites that have been launched. But it shows you the overlapping. So if you, the little gear up there in the top window next to the word Twitter on the left. And then if you check rings, about halfway down your map, or a little bit further down, there we go. If you check that guy and you click save, and then you zoom in over the United States. So you can actually see these are all of the Starlink satellites that are currently in orbit.
I don't know what I just did.
You clicked on an individual satellite. If you just click off of that. There it goes. And then you can just rotate the Earth. And that shows you the individual trains that are up there that have not been split apart and some that have been split apart. But I was watching the recent, one of the recent talks on Starlink, and this is one of the websites that they kind of directed everybody to. So that way, as you zoom in, you can zoom in on your locality and see how much overlapping of satellites. And what they want to do is have a constant overlap of satellites so that way you're not in a dark dead zone or have a dropout. So they're currently working on splitting those satellites apart so that way there is more coverage. But I figured I ran upon this a couple nights ago and thought it was a pretty cool website because it is a live, well, it's mathematically a live update of where the satellites are. So, but that's kind of my update. I know, David, you had some information that you talked about.
And I will try to get that out to everybody. I wanted to get it out today, but I did not have a chance to get that in the packet that everybody sent ahead. Just be aware that there are people that are concerned about whether the satellite is going to be a long-term solution. There's been several studies that the RDOF funding may actually have an adverse effect on the satellite's ability to be able to deliver the promised speeds in the areas that are highly saturated with ground users, such as that would be created by RDOF funding in certain areas. So there are some people that are not totally on board with whether they can actually deliver what they say they are. And as we've seen in other types of beta tests, a lot of times it works well when the system is not under a huge load. Question is going to be, can they sustain that or grow beyond what they're projecting right now? So that's one of the reasons why I think this committee has kind of leaned towards the best ultimate permanent solution, if it can be afforded, is a cable or cable fiber hybrid system that is future proof.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Yes, I agree. People need to understand that this is a shared resource and that satellites as well as cell towers have a maximum they can process. And that's the limiting function.
Yeah, and two, even your cable and fiber providers sometimes are shared access as well. So
Sure, obviously, yes, very much so. Even in the old days with modems, there was a modem ratio.
Yep.
10 to 1. That'd be
so
10 people to one modem.
And so Comcast, in some of our earlier discussions, said that there was a 30 to 40% nationwide overall increase almost immediately last March when COVID hit, when people started working from home and going to school. So there is a fixed amount of data that's out there, and how they can distribute it most effectively, it's a challenge, not only for us as a committee to try to figure out how to get it to the home, but providing that data is a challenge, and the whole system is loaded down pretty good right now. So, but for the number of people that are raising concerns about the long-term viability and ability of Starlink to be able to deliver what they say, it's still a midterm solution. If down the road we see that they are able and they're not having problems, then the committee could always maybe look at changing that to a long-term solution. But right now we just be a little cautious because we don't know what's going to happen when it actually gets to where it needs to be.
So I guess one question that I have, because I've been reading a bunch of articles, I'm all over the SpaceX thing, big time. I've been watching all the launches and stuff like that. One of the things that I've been reading with the RDOF is that they are looking for speeds of 25 meg over 3 meg. And do we need to put anything, and I didn't think about this until just now, do we need to put anything into our strategic plan when it comes to speeds? Or do we leave it as it is because at that point we adopt what the FCC determines as high speed or what have you? Go ahead.
Jason, I believe we should put speeds as well as latency.
Okay.
I agree.
A 60 millisecond latency will will suck badly over video. Or
Yeah.
video will really get impacted. People need to understand that, that was the problem you had with the geosynchronous satellites. It just took
Right.
too long. So I think latency should be in there, and there's a specification out there, and I can't remember, and that's what they call broadband. And I think 25 megabits down is part of it.
Yeah.
And I
I
got
think
the
20,
latency.
think 25/3 is the normal, but I can't remember what the latency is. I'm going to look it up right now.
Okay.
And I think that's part of the reason why RDOF funded satellite, but VATI did not disqualify areas because of satellite, because I think VATI, the Virginia Telecommunications Initiative, as well as the DHCD, kind of leans more towards a more future-proof, higher speed, either fiber coax or fixed wireless that can deliver speeds a little bit faster than what the actual speeds that are being delivered by the satellite now. So there's several factors that have driven us to kind of be cautious about falling into the, we're all in for satellite. Because right now it's still a little bit on the unproven side. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I'm all for that. I mean, that sounds good.
Mike, is that fair?
I'm sorry, David, you talking to me?
Yes. Is that fair to say that we just should probably be a little cautious until they're more mature?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's until they're proven. It's just like any other wireless solution. Can it deliver in our geographical area, given our vegetation and location and all of that?
Just to update everybody also on the Starlink, while we're still on this, you can go out to the App Store, both on Android phones and on Apple phones, and download the Starlink app. And there is as one of the options when you bring up the application, it asks you to do like an obstruction viewer, and it utilizes the camera on your phone, and it uses your geolocation of where you're currently located and shows you where you would have to have clear line of sight for you to have internet. And it utilizes the camera and it tells you need to have it within inside of this, so you can move your camera around and already see where you're going to need to have an opening or clearing, or where's the best place to put this device, in order to get the optimal, experience that you would expect from the dish itself. So that you can find that in your app stores and whatever, and it's free to download. So something to think about and take a look at if you want to be an early adopter of this technology. And Mr. Vosberg, I don't see any latency call out in the FCC ruling of what they consider to be broadband. I'll try and do some.
I might have gotten that from IEEE or somebody. I know I ran across it.
I'll continue to dig into that and see what I can find, because I think that would be something good for us to call out and just, adopt kind of what the FCC is determining as broadband. I know I've got DSL at my house that is 5 megabits over 768 kilobits. And on my bill every month, it says broadband. And I laugh whenever I read that, because back in the day, when it originally became available out here in, Lower Caroline County, that was broadband at the time. Now my cell phone gets faster internet than what I'm paying for, my DSL.
I think I read that in one of the broadband communities magazines that I get. I'll have to get a look there too, because that was a definition from some government entity, I do believe, and I'll see if I can find something as well.
Okay, thank you.
I think
I do believe DHCD and VATI does have a latency number in there on the state side. Not sure about
Okay, cool.
yeah, but there also may be something in there, Mike, if you go into RDOF grant application, I think there may be some latency involved in that as well, so.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else they want to share on Starlink as an update right now, or? All right. We can move on to Windship if you want. Number 4, I can give an update on that one. I spoke with Ray, which is the one of the owners of Windship, and they are a fixed wireless solution currently rolling out options in King William County. And I've been kind of following him for the past year and a half, give or take, on their progress that they've been making in King William County to see whether they would potentially, eventually even be a potential solution or viable solution for Caroline County. I kind of want to, see where they go and how things expand and how things work before we make those decisions based on, previous engagements. So my friend was actually supposed to be installed this past weekend on Saturday, and they had issues trying to sync up with the Globe Tower, which is over in King William County. And he is currently, as the crow flies, 4.5 miles roughly from his house to the cell phone tower. And they could not get a link between the technology that they were using just over that short distance. He was in the middle of a field. He actually has a barn there that he has wired electricity to, so that way he could install it on the top of the barn to get above any trees or anything, and was still unable to get a link back to the cell tower for Windship. They currently have a few people turned on, I believe in Tappahannock, if I remember correctly. I think they've currently got 10 people turned on their network as of, I think last week at some point in time. So I'm going to continue to work with Ray, and I want to see more numbers on the system. I want to see more people getting installed, because right now they do not have anybody installed on the Globe Tower, which is the closest one to Lower Caroline County at this point in time. The ultimate goal was to see whether we could install some sort of, dish on top of my house and point it at the tower, because I believe I'm about 11 miles from where the cell phone tower is, to see whether I could even pick up a signal. But if you can't get it at 4.5 miles, there's no reason for me to even try and play around and, make any sort of connection back to their, cell tower or their tower where they have their device at. So I'm kind of, that one's kind of at a standstill right now. I'm going to continue to work with Ray over the next couple months, maybe even bring him in here to discuss some stuff down the road once they have more people on and more data on, the stability of it, how it is during the springtime and the summer when there's actually leaves on the trees. Because right now you're kind of at the optimal time where there's no leaves on the trees, and even cell phone signals right now are better. But once you start bringing in the springtime and the summer, where you actually have the leaf coverage, you run into all of the moisture in the leaves sucking up the cell phone signal and the wireless signals, and actually degrading the connection. So I'll be interested to see some of that come back. Does anybody have any questions on that? Or
Jason, it might be worth mentioning too that since this meeting is being streamed live and on YouTube, if we have other fixed wireless providers in the area that want to present their solution, we're open to that.
Amen.
I mean, we are definitely open to it. So if anyone has a possible solution to the struggle that we're having right now, feel free to contact us. And we will definitely talk to you and engage and learn about your part of the world. So again, we are open.
Yes.
Is provide some type of connection to everyone.
And David, that's just not limited to fixed wireless providers. That's
correct.
any technology that's out there we're willing to talk to, because I know there are white space people and different folks. So I'm willing to talk to anybody.
Yeah. Except for if you have two cans and a string, that we'll debate on that one. But yeah, I agree.
Well, if the string is fiber optic, I might want to talk to you.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
All right. Anybody have any questions for me on the Windship, or do you want me to move on to new business?
Yeah, let me just touch base real quick, Jason. This is Floyd
Yes, sir.
again. I'd like to kind of work with you with Windship, because I've been in contact with Ray myself. So if you don't mind, I'd like to tag along in that relationship.
That works. That works. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I will add you to my list.
All right. Thank you then. That's it for me.
Not a problem. Anybody else?
This isn't related to Windship, but this is related to the strategic plan and the 25/3. I was looking at a FTC broadband map, and it says that our area is covered by Viasat, formerly Exceed, and they are able to offer unlimited 25/3, which I don't know if I believe that for high Earth satellite, old style satellite technology.
I believe it, but they don't call out the latency on it. So that's.
But I bet if you went to Rob Whitman and said, look, there's no high speed in our area, he would refer back to that chart. So I think, those charts are a little bit skewed in the favor of satellite companies. I don't know if that's something that we would need to say we don't recommend high speed, old style satellite. Hard to say.
Yeah.
I think we do spell out lower orbit satellite in the mid range, and we're not mentioning the geosynchronous satellite anywhere. I don't know if that's enough. How do you guys feel about that?
I think that's good. But I
yeah.
think Jason Jacobus brings up a good point that we always get caught up in. The state, when they predict or map wireless or internet capability, they use things that aren't necessarily viable. So it's not really this committee, I guess maybe the Board of Supervisors or VACO, someone on a larger scale, has to get the state to make a much better and much realistic map of what the capabilities are.
I would agree. That's a good point from both of you guys. Because agreed, you could say, okay, I can get unlimited 25/3 over satellite, but my ping time or my latency is 3 seconds. Well, that doesn't work for being able to work remote. That doesn't work for any sort of video conferencing. That doesn't work for any sort of distance learning or anything like that. But if they look at it and go, oh, well, you can get 25/3, you need it, but they're not looking at the entire picture. They're just looking at a slice of the picture. So
we do have a remote learning expert on this committee. Charlie could probably comment as to whether something with an 1800 millisecond ping time, which is probably about average for most of the geosynchronous providers, would that even work in a classroom situation?
No, it would be like us trying to do this meeting with that type of latency. It would completely not work for an online instruction.
So everybody still feels good about our medium and long range leaning away from geosynchronous as a solution.
Yeah, I think geosynchronous could be a immediate solution, but it's not something that we would recommend at all as a committee.
Especially with the contract terms on a lot of those providers that you're,
yep.
A lot of them require long-term contracts, like 3 years. And 3 years is a long time the way the world of internet is changing. So it might not be a good idea to try to jump on it as a quick fix and then get stuck with it for 3 years.
Right. Okay. All right. Do we want to move into new business now? Everybody okay with that? All right. So number 5, discuss about future project areas and next steps. David, do you want to give kind of a overview of that, or do you want me to dig into it?
I can give, from a staff perspective, for example, if we have areas that we want to submit for VATI grants, and we have one area that's been looked at that's possibly submission to VATI grant, we need to start working on these ahead of time. Right now, I don't know how realistic it would be to try to come up with another area for this year's VATI grant, but we should always start looking early as opposed to the last minute areas. If you look, and I don't have the map, but if you look at the county spread out with the RDOF funding that's in line, a lot of the county is covered with the exception of southern, like in the Dawn area. So I think if we want to look at that area, we probably should discuss it here tonight. And I can get in touch with Atlantic Broadband and see, for example, what it would cost to do, roughly 50 miles of internet in the Dawn area. We would try to pick areas that are highly, as densely populated as possible to try to keep the cost down to the county. But I think now is a good time, now that we have one VATI grant that's being considered. We have a second area that we could all, that if the board so chooses to be considered as a VATI project, let's look at another area. And now might be the time to start looking at that. So that's why I think it's a good idea for us to have that discussion at this point.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's worthwhile for us to have those type of things kind of, I'll refer back to the old term, our Rolodex, to where, if we need to come, we have to submit another VATI grant, we don't have to, immediately run out and try and find something. We've already got ones ready to go and staged. So that way, as VATI is available, we just keep submitting and try and win as many of those as possible.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Seeley and Mr. Thomas?
Jeff, you can go
I'd
ahead.
like to see how we did on this VATI grant. Have we heard anything else?
We have not heard anything. They have not made any releases. It's my understanding that some of the localities are still in the middle of their rescope. It's my understanding that there may be some money from the states, from the federal government to the states in this recent stimulus package that may have something to do with the fact that they haven't made those awards yet. So I'm trying to remain hopeful that no news that right now is maybe good news. So that's kind of my feelings, but officially we have heard no words.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
go ahead, Jeff.
go ahead, Floyd.
I was just going to say, as far as next steps, we ought to always have something, as we used to say before, shovel ready. So we should always have a project in the hopper that the committee is saying in the 6 different districts of the county, this is the one we think we should do next, and this is the one we should do second. So we may want to try to look at those possibilities as a committee and say, where is an area we think we could hit with a need that we could apply for a grant? The other thing on the county perspective and state side is we do honestly have to figure out how to use some of this COVID money to expand, the either the footprints we have or create new footprints. Because that's what a lot of this money was intended for, remote schooling, and, remote schooling may be the school of the future to some degree. So we need to prepare for that. We need to prepare for the things we've really put in our strategic plan e-commerce, e-farming, telemedicine. Those are all things we don't have that we really have to have. So how we plan to get there is part of what I see the committee doing. And, the bottom line goal is fiber, but until we get to fiber, I may have to put up with that 2-second latency of a satellite. And maybe we negotiate a better price for 50 or 100 people who want satellite that don't have anything. So just my thoughts.
My thoughts on this, Jason, is also that if we can look at another project area, then if the time comes that the board needs to make a decision, we can give them a couple of different options, and we can look at number of passings per mile on the end cost to the county, so they would have another choice. It may be that we can find an area in that part of the county where we can get some, we can get some density to the connections and cut the cost down. And still, because our goal is to try to, or in the past, it's always been the goal of this committee to try to get the most bang for the buck. And if we can find an area that's highly, densely populated and it makes more sense, then let's put another area to look at so that we can compare the areas, is my thoughts. But again, it's up to this committee to decide if that's where, or are we at the point now where we need to start looking at some other areas.
Okay. I think, you said you're willing to reach out to Atlantic Broadband to, see what they say. Is that where we need to go? Is go ahead and reach out to them and let's, at least see what they say first?
I think we can do that. And I think it would be a good next step if we can give them an area that we want them to look at. I guess that's kind of what I'm asking from the community. If we have an area, if we want to identify a target area, and then we can look maybe with our GIS analyst and look for an area that has some density and try to figure out what makes sense. I would think that probably 50 miles or less would be the project area that we'd be looking at. That's kind of the size of the areas that we've been dealing with so far, 50 linear miles. But again, I guess I would just be asking for direction from this committee as to what we want to do.
Does anybody want to discuss that, or?
I think that's a good direction point.
Okay. I think so too. I think it's let's go ahead and, I guess, engage them. If we think the Dawn area is the best place for us to expand it, then let's, or at least start looking and have a, something shovel ready for the next wave. Then I guess Atlantic Broadband's who we reach out to and start having discussions with them.
So I guess with permission of this committee, I'll start at least a preliminary discussion with Atlantic Broadband about serving, to come up with a project area of about 50 miles or less in an area that's not currently mapped to be served under the RDOF project. And we can just start from there and see what we can come up with. Also, it would probably be good to re-engage Atlantic Broadband now that they've had time to digest what the RDOF funding means to them, to maybe have them come back into this committee, possibly even next month, to discuss what RDOF means and what we can expect from that. They seem to be willing to discuss that, whereas the RDOF funding that was given to Starlink, we can't find anyone that's willing to even give us a clue as to what that means for us. So I think, with permission of this committee, I'll go ahead and start at least some preliminary discussions with Atlantic Broadband and see what we can come up with.
think that's good. We don't, do we want to limit it to just Atlantic Broadband, or do we want to talk to Comcast, which is our other cable provider, and maybe they would have an option too?
We can do that. We have a line of communications with Comcast. We could always ask them to give us their best case scenario, what they can provide, and then Atlantic Broadband. And the only reason Atlantic Broadband has come into this, under the RDOF funding, they do have funding to provide fiber across Route 30 to the King William Caroline line. So that puts them and Comcast close to the area that we're trying to get served. So it would probably be a good idea to engage both.
Okay.
I'm not sure, some of the other discussions that we've had with them, what effect that would have on it, but we can always try.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion for that, David, do you think, to give you permission to do that?
That's up to you guys.
You can just direct staff, which is, I guess, David and Jeff and I, to make that happen.
Okay. All right. So if everybody's okay with it, David, go forth and prosper. And, if you need any help or reaching out to anybody, just let us know or let me know, and I can help you out in any way I can.
Well, my thoughts are, after the preliminary discussion with ABB and possibly Comcast, that we have those guys come back before this committee with the results of what they find out. Right now, it'll probably be just based on talks with other providers and all. It may just be a preliminary number that we're able to get, but at least we have something to
Right.
start looking at. And again, who knows, if something happens, we'll have another area that we're working on. And I think it's a very important area. And because of the lack of funding in that area, of other funding mechanisms, I think this might be an opportunity for us to try to address the need there.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea.
Is everybody okay with me moving forward with some preliminary discussion? Does that sound okay?
Sure, I'm all right with it. I do have one other, I guess, new business. Has anybody seen the REC announcement for partnering with Firefly to provide fiber in Louisa County?
Yes.
Do we know anything more?
The only thing that I know is I got an article, I guess you got the same thing, that they were going to work with Louisa. Ironically, Louisa is where they were being sued by a landowner who didn't want them to cross his easement. So I found that kind of interesting and hadn't been able to dig any deeper to see what the story was. So it appears that they are back in possibly the broadband business, but we haven't been able to confirm that.
Mr. Thomas, I was able to have a brief meeting with two representatives from REC since our last meeting. I guess it just seems like the last meeting was last week, but I have discussed it. REC is very much aware of the need of broadband in this area, and how much that's been just exponentially grown since COVID. They are aware of the need. They want to help. Because of that lawsuit, they are not able to be the end-to-end provider of internet. However, they do remain more than willing to partner with anyone that's able to deliver internet to the homes in their service area, and they would provide the mid-mile fiber for that. So We have been talking with them about that. And it's possible that somewhere, down the road, we can have them come in and talk a little bit more about what they're looking for. But they are still willing to look at it. I think because of the lawsuit, according to them, they're just unable to be the end provider.
When you say end provider, you mean the last mile?
I don't see that's kind of almost misleading, Mike. I don't know if it's the last mile, because I think what their plans are with their fiber utility network is to actually provide fiber to every meter, so that eventually the meters could be read. So,
Right.
so it may be
That's
the last 30 or 50 feet. I just don't.
Well, yeah, they're the electric or the electric service in it's Colorado. They actually are planning to fiber connection to every transformer.
So, I mean, it may be good to have REC come in at a future meeting and just clarify that for us.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Estes Park people, that's what they want to do, is at least every transformer, so they can find outages quickly, because their geographic terrain looks terrible. Lots of rocks and trees and mountains. I was just curious whether I didn't realize, I knew somebody was suing them about hanging data lines on their poles in the right of way, but I didn't know that it was Louisa County.
Yeah, and according to REC, they were in the RDOF auction and had a large area that they were trying to be awarded, but the lawsuit came about a week after the RDOF auction opened up for bids, and they were forced to pull out. So
I see.
they had plans to come to this area and be an ISP, but that was changed because of the lawsuit.
So how can they provide, if they're being sued for hanging data lines on their poles or whatever, that means no fiber can go on their poles.
I think it now, again, they could answer this more clearly than I can, but I think the problem was that the lawsuit stated that, and the lawsuit is actually not only against REC, but it's against the state law that was changed to allow co-ops to do that.
Oh.
But that in the lawsuit, it basically said that if the co-op is going to be making income from the internet, then they should have the poles and the right-of-way should be awarded.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So now
he was supposed to get more money.
Yeah.
I see it more. Is it more a competitive thing? To lease their poles out to a competitor?
I'm not sure. We could always have them, like I said, if we wanted to try to set them up, come in and discuss a little bit more. But I think what they've done in Louisa is they are not the internet service provider. They have no skin in the game. They're not going to be sending bills out. They're not going to have actual income from the end users. So that apparently satisfies something. I'm not sure.
So they are okay with leasing the fiber out to an ISP?
Yes, and they not only are they okay with it, they are actively engaging any partner that wants to partner with them.
Got it.
They will be able to provide a fiber backbone to a lot of very rural areas.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Okay. So do we want to does anybody have any contacts at REC?
I do. I have the two gentlemen that I spoke to that are in charge of that program. So I can reach back out to them. Personally, it might not be a bad idea to try to get the RDOF question answered first and then maybe REC right after that.
Works for me. it'd just be good to have some of that information. So.
Yeah, we actually, from a board level, Jason, we actually had a presentation from REC before all of this happened with the lawsuit and some other things. So
Okay.
it should be fairly easy for us to, restart those conversations.
Okay.
They're probably not going to want an open meeting though for that.
That's why I say it'll be easy for us to restart those conversations.
We can check with them. The information that I've discussed here tonight, and I don't like speaking for them, but if you go to their website, the REC's website, they have an entire section that says basically the same thing, that they are actively looking to engage partners to assist them in delivering internet. So I think that's safe, and I don't know if they stay within that conversation, they might be. So we could always address that with them and see if we can get them into a future meeting if you guys want to.
Okay. All right. Do we want to skip? Does anybody have any other new business? I think that kind of covered everything that I had jotted down on my notes. Because we talked about the VATI, the RDOF, Atlantic Broadband, Starlink. That's everything that I had jotted down and everything that we have on our agenda. The only thing we didn't have on the agenda that we did talk about was old business, and that was the VATI. So just so that way we can bring that up to date. Hearing no other new business, do we want to talk about next meeting and the date?
So next,
I've got April 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
that looks like if we stick with the same week, I think that would be April the 19th at 7 p.m. And then if you guys want me to reach out to ABB to discuss their RDOF awards, maybe we can get them in on the 19th to discuss that.
Okay. That'll be good. All right. Does anybody else have anything that we need to discuss or bring up tonight before we adjourn?
If anybody has any contacts at Starlink that would like to discuss with us their RDOF awards for our area and what it means to us, that would be great too, but I don't know that exists.
Yeah, I try not to text Elon Musk too much from time to time. So.
And he stopped returning your calls?
Yeah, he stopped, and I don't know what's going on.
He does respond to Twitter occasionally, so I don't know if somebody wants to send out a message, but it would be nice to have someone, at least in a press release type format, if nothing else, let us know what does it mean. They got a lot of RDOF. Is it going to affect the cost of equipment or monthly service in these areas, or does it have no effect whatsoever on the cost?
Okay. All right. Well, hearing no other stuff and stuff up for discussion, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Well, I guess we're adjourned. We will meet again on April 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.